Hello, Feely Humans. Welcome to another episode of You Me Empathy. My name is Known Wells, and this is episode 252 on building an ecosystem of people who see you for you with my friend Calvin Eaton. Calvin is the founder of 540 West Main. If you go to 540westmain.org, you can learn more about them. They're an anti-racist organization. They do anti-racism consulting. They have classes, community classes online and in the Buffalo, New York area. Just wonderful stuff that they're doing in the world. And also Calvin is a published author, and his new book is called Just Desserts, 40 Step-by-Step Gluten-Free Dessert Recipes. And it's available for pre-order right now. If you go to theglutenfreechefblog.com, that's theglutenfreechefblog.com, you can pre-order your cookbook, even if you're not a gluten-free person. Like, Calvin is a wonderful, wonderful feely human, and he just puts so much good and beauty in the world, and I like to support people like that. I also like to support independent authors. So go pick up your book, grab a few copies, give one to a friend. Maybe grab some copies for, Christmas gifts or what have you. But if you go to theglutenfreechefblog.com, you can pre-order your book, Just Desserts, 40 Step-by-Step Gluten-Free Dessert Recipes by Calvin Eaton. We also talk about, in this podcast, the hardship of living with a disability in an ableist world, how white supremacy culture, aka individualism, patriarchy, capitalism, harms everyone, and, like I said, building an ecosystem, also known as community, of people who see you and support you. I really loved this conversation. Calvin, like I said, one of my favorite humans. And also, I will say, I have an announcement about the pod. I shared about this on Instagram, just in my stories. So if you missed it, that's okay. If you're not on Instagram, that's wonderful too. The podcast is going on hiatus. I am taking a break from the podcast, and there's a lot that goes into that, but what that will mean for you in the near future is that the episodes that I have recorded already, the guests that I have on the calendar now, those will all come out. Don't you worry about that. Those will come out weekly, and that will take you through August, so you'll get new episodes every week. Starting now, May through August, so for the next couple of months. And after that, I'm going to take a break. I don't know what that break looks like, but I've just been feeling a shift. I've been feeling like I want to change things up. I believe in my heart that the podcast will be coming back at some point. I don't know what that will look like yet. It might look like a completely different podcast, different format. I don't know yet. I gotta ruminate on that. But I do think I want to continue podcasting. I don't know what that looks like yet, though, like I said. And part of the reason for this is, I've loved every moment of doing this podcast. I've been doing it for 5.5 years. I've been so privileged and honored to sit down with so many beautiful, feely humans who are doing such magical work in the world, authors and therapists and, you name it, everyone just doing so much wonderful work in the world. And I'm so grateful for that. And I'm also, I'm needing a shift. I'm needing a change. And like I said, I also want to, I launched this Feely Human community, feelyhuman.co/membership. I've launched this community in January, and it's going well, and I want to continue to foster that and give more energy to that and really grow that. If you haven't checked that out, like I said, go to feelyhuman.co/membership. And I just want to continue to focus on that. I want to do more writing and reading. That's part of it. Like, I love reading. I love writing, and I haven't been doing as much of it the past few years because of the podcast. And I want to do more of that. And, a big part of it too is Jessica will be finishing her doctorate fairly soon, knock on wood. And I want to spend more time with her and the pups and all of those things. So, like I said, you'll get weekly episodes from now until August, and the podcast, I believe, will be coming back. I just don't know what it will look like. It might look a lot differently. Might look a lot different. So, in the meantime, please leave a rating and review. Please share the podcast with your friends. There are still 5.5 years of amazing episodes, and also go check out the Feely Human community, please. If you want to be in a space with other folks who see you for you and support each other and learn to listen actively and be curious and be present with discomfort, and also talk about the movies that make us feel. We have a movie club. We have emotional check-in series. We have weekly heart-to-hearts on various topics like vulnerability or journaling or all sorts of things. We also have like monthly expert-led workshops. Next week actually is creative writing and reflection with Tracy Kato Kiriyama, and that's super exciting. And I love Tracy, and they were a guest on the pod, and that's coming out soon as well. So yeah, lots of wonderful stuff happening in the community, and that's the announcement. And I also want to just say, like, the announcement has nothing to do with the guests today, Calvin, or the guests that are coming in the next couple of months. Like, I've enjoyed every single conversation, really. There's no reflection on them. They are wonderful. It's just where I'm at. It's where I'm at with the pod. I need to take a hiatus, and I will keep you posted. The best way to keep in touch with me in terms of just seeing what I'm up to is to join the community, or maybe both. Best to do both is to join my newsletter. Go to feelyhuman.co and check that out. But that's the announcement. I hope you really, really love and enjoy the episode today. I know I did, with my friend Calvin Eaton on building an ecosystem of people who see you for you. Enjoy.
La la la, you, me, empathy, yeah, la la la.
Welcome to You, Me, Empathy, the official podcast of the Feely Human Collective. On this show, we explore the struggles, the triumphs, the brights and the darks we face as humans trying to be human on this wondrous and overwhelming pale blue dot. You, Me, Empathy was created so that we can be witness to our collective humanity through the lens of empathy, vulnerability, and emotional curiosity. We aim to destigmatize mental health, lead fiercely with our hearts, feel our feelings without shame and judgment, and share our courageous stories so that others may feel less alone and more connected as Feely humans. You, Me, Empathy is a brave place designed to inspire the beauty in each of us, because each of us, in all of our kaleidoscopic parts, makes up a magical whole that deserves to be seen. Today, I am elated to be here with teacher, author of the Gluten-Free School blog, founder of 540 West Main, a nonprofit that focuses on anti-racism education, and truly one of my favorite Feely humans on the planet. It's Calvin Eaton. Hello, Calvin.
Hi, Noan. Hi, everyone. How are you?
I'm doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing okay at the moment. I feel very full. I am working on a pretty big creative project, which we can talk about a little later. Overall, I'm doing okay. But I will say that over the last several weeks, I have not been having a good moment, if you will. There's been a lot of contributions to just dealing with a lot of big emotions and processing and just tapping into my community and talking. And I'm really like a talker processor. So when I am experiencing anxiety or stressors, challenges, or even like anger or frustration, whatever,
Hmm.
I just have to like talk it out. So I'm
Yeah.
happy to have the tools, more tools in my toolkit to be able to do that when I have moments like this.
Mm.
So yeah, no, it's a mouthful.
That is a lot. Well, I mean, as you know, we always kick off the show with an emotional check-in. Are you open to getting into a little bit of like why that's happening, what's going on there for yourself?
Yeah, yeah, sure. So yeah, I would say at the moment I'm probably at a 3. It's like on a scale from 1 to 5. Am I feeling about in the middle? I'm not. I definitely am feeling a lot stronger than I have over the past couple of weeks. And one of the main factors or stressors that have prevented me from feeling the way that I would prefer to be feeling and performing at the level that I would like to be doing all the things I want to do is that I live with a disability, a disabling condition, a chronic pain condition called fibromyalgia. And I've been, living with this for over 10 years now. And I'm pretty common cycle of season changing and moving from one season to the next. So we're moving into autumn, and then we recently had the fall equinox and the transition. And because I live in upstate New York, that transition is pretty like visible and significant with like the weather and the air temperature is changing, the barometric pressure, there's less sun. All of those things. I usually experience a flare up of my symptoms. Um, so just like escalation of fatigue for me, a lot more brain fog and pain. I would say that since I've been living with this for so long, I have a really great a pretty good, if you can find good, relatively speaking, to symptoms, handle on the pain
Hmm.
part of fibromyalgia, but um, the fatigue and the brain, the cognitive impact of a flare has really been increasingly significant when I do have flares. And so that's just concerned me. And I've been having a lot of conversations over the past couple of weeks with a neurologist and some other professionals because um, it's really hard to describe fatigue and like cognitive delay
Yeah.
that is because of whatever broken systems or wiring that's incorrect in your brain. But it feels like you're in quite literally a fog. Like fog is like a omnipresence and
Hmm.
holding you back and like pulling you down and you know um you know sleeping like for 14 hours straight and just not really being able to do a whole lot other than like basic survival. So like eating very little, not eating very consistently, in bed a lot. And it's really hard to put into words because it feels very different. It's not the same as like just tiredness. This is like a chronic fatigue syndrome where
Right.
no matter how much sleep you get, you feel like more or less like you've been drugged into a stupor. And thinking it's difficult, tending to any type of like significant tasks that require significant cognitive function, like things like driving or cooking or
Mm.
reading or being on the computer, looking at a screen, you're just really not able to do it. So those those symptoms I've noticed over the past year, really, as I go through this cycle that I've become accustomed to. It feels very different, if it makes sense. Like when I'm in my the cognitive low that I am experiencing most recently, living with this condition over time feels a lot more significant than it used to be, and I'm
Mm.
prevents me from sort of like feeling like I'm able to do the things and be the full person and have the life that I want to have. there's sleep components in it that has to do with, there's a connection with fibromyalgia and like sleep and not getting quality REM sleep, those types of things. So it's just been a lot. And, I'm used to the cycle. I never know when exactly it's going to come on when we're changing a season. I don't know how long it's going to carry on when I am experiencing a flare up of symptoms. So because of those unknown factors, it can just feel very much like overwhelming to be living with it. And I think, so it's, it feels like a lot. I do feel a lot of relief this week because I do feel like finally after probably 3 weeks, most recently, that I'm feeling more like my baseline. But when you're in it, it can sometimes feel like this is never going to end.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to be able to come out of this. So.
Yes. That last bit, I'd imagine, I certainly relate to, I'd imagine many people can relate to the feeling of like when you're in the thing, when you're in the pain or you're in the depression or you're in the cycle, the low cycle, it does feel like that's all that will ever be. Right. And that's, I think our brains probably playing tricks on us, but, it's hard and I'm sorry you've been struggling. And my heart goes out to you, Calvin, and anyone who really, the reality is, as you know, the world doesn't want to see, I mean, it's an invisible illness, right? It's a chronic illness and the world doesn't want to see that. The world doesn't want to address it. The world, I mean, these are broad statements, but the reality is that people living like yourself with chronic pain, quote unquote, invisible illness, it's easier to like not think about it, right? It's easier to like push it under the rug because a lot of these things are like from a medical community, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but like there's a lot of mystery around it. There's a lot of like still unknowns about these types of conditions, which I know in my, nothing compared to you, but like in my experience, I've had some chronic issues and having to be faced with a doctor who's yet again telling me like, I'm sorry, like I can't help you it is overwhelming. It's frustrating.
Yeah, very much so. And there's just a lot of trial and error in trying to document when you can symptoms and explain it to someone who doesn't live with it or doesn't maybe sometimes have a connection to it. And, when you're retelling traumas to people over and over again, that becomes exhausting. And I feel that people who, don't live constantly with this constant, like invisible weight or backpack, this thing that exists and it feels, it's very much like an entity that's part of you, but also like not part of you. It's very hard to really help people to understand. And because we live in such a culture, especially right now, where there's this constant push to produce and to consume and to perform, it's really challenging. I think the more challenging part of the quality of life and navigating through disability of all kinds is that, the world is not set up to support, and we live in a very ableist, capitalist world. So, I think that, I don't think I know that because of that makes it even more challenging to manage and to navigate because, from every perspective, from a financial perspective, like it's really expensive to maintain, wellness when you are unwell chronically. Yeah. And preventative treatments and, tapping into Eastern medicine practice, mindful practice and treatments that are not sort of like prescription medication. Usually it's not covered by insurance. So you're paying for things out of pocket. It impacts your ability to work for money and work for companies or other organizations and create revenue streams for your life. So there's just a lot of components, and it really becomes its own full-time job, or full-time sort of entity to deal with. And, I'm really grateful for myself. And we've talked before about this, that I have been able to create what I call an ecosystem, where I work for myself, or I've started I'm an entrepreneur, and I created a company and a nonprofit that is driven from this experience and living with this. And so I'm able to really curate a team and resources of people who support, and whom I support as well when we're, sick or not able to perform at the levels that we would be prefer to. But, I don't have control of I can't control all the intertwined systems that we're all connected to, since the world is really connected, and we're all connected in some way or another.
Yeah.
Or will be at some point. So, I try to, over the years, what has helped me is conversations and dialogues like this, where I can share my experience and help other people to know that sometimes it does feel very isolating, and like, is there anyone else in the world who understands this? And so knowing that there's a community of people who do is really helpful, not only to me, but I know for other people, by all of us sharing our experiences in safe spaces. But sometimes I share my experience personally when it's not safe to do so, and I know that not everybody is able to do that. So that's a big piece of it for sure as well. So just a lot, I'm very, you just get really like meta and always thinking about your experience, what you're going through, and how that relates to other people too. Overthinking, really.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I relate to that. What I find so admirable about you, Calvin, is that you you mentioned it, and I think this is so crucial, is like the ecosystem piece you built, and you sort of brought people into your world through your activism, through your passion. And these people are people who, like you said, see you and hear you, and are understanding of this idea that you're living with a chronic illness, a disability, right? Like, these are parts of you. They're not all of you, but they're parts of you, and they indicate certain things. Sometimes they indicate that you need to take a break from the thing, and you're bringing people into your universe who understand that and empathize with that, which I think is so crucial to our healing, to our collective healing, to our collective growth as people, our collective liberation, I believe. I think that's beautiful. The other piece is like the sharing your story. Yes, it is very important. And I sometimes wonder if you've ever felt this, if you felt like, well, why do I have to be the one that has to like talk? Like, why do I have to be the one that has to like talk about these things? Like, why do I have to be the guy who has to talk about chronic disability again and again and again? Like, sometimes I feel that, like, why do I have to be the guy that, I don't have to, but like, sometimes I feel that, like, why do I have to be the guy that talks about depression or whatever it may be? Like, there is I'm exhausted. Can't other people do that? But, I obviously, there's, I think, important intersectionality there. I'm coming from a place of privilege. I don't have a chronic disability, right? So I'm operating on a different level. And with that privilege comes more responsibility in certain areas, right? So I don't know. Have you ever felt that? Do you feel
Yeah, well, I think probably more in the beginning. So, for my experience living with a chronic condition, it started for me in 2009, and then 2010 when I was formally diagnosed, to really diagnose myself. Because, right, to your point, like, why do I have to? Because who's going to do it? No one else was finding any answers. It probably wasn't until 3 years into it. So in 2012, I I didn't have the resources and the tools and the mindset that I've cultivated over a lot of years of very hard work and continuous work.
Right.
And I sustained an accident that put me into a flare for at that time. And since then, it was like an 8-month long recovery.
Wow.
That was, of course, affected because I live with this, imbalance of how my body processes and reports, pain stimuli to my brain. So when I was dealing with that in the fall of 2012, it was probably the darkest place that I've ever been in mentally because, I was only 2 years into this illness and dealing with it. So I had never experienced that sort of elevated to that degree, a level of symptomology that was ongoing and persistent. And so I think that if there was ever a time when I did have some of those thoughts, like, why do I have to do it? Or why is this happening to me? Was during those time periods. But even then, what sort of instinctually I turned to was documenting my experience, both for myself and, like I said, because that's how I process.
Right.
Documenting it in some way. So whether that be like a voice recording to myself or a journal, so it became a journal, which became like a book of poetry that I ended up publishing, and then a blog during the experience. I instinctually just turned to sharing and like a community. Like it was initially very much like for myself, just like for me to process this, but then I also simultaneously, because of the technology of a blog, right, you can at the same time, you can immediately write something and then it's for your own cathartic practice, but also you can publish it for the world immediately.
Yeah. So
I answer it that way because, although I was had a lot of dark and despondent emotions, I don't think I've ever like asked why do I have to do, because it's just like naturally I do. I've always just been the doer, right? But I will say that I more process it and think about your question with is, well, I guess, yeah. So like, it's more like, why can't someone else do it from the sense of like the inequity of that, right? Like people you're marginalized by a system, by a society, by a culture for a variety of different reasons. You're also dealing with this, whatever the thing is that you're dealing with.
Yeah.
And you're also at the same time being always meta, always empathetic, sympathetic. And that in of itself is exhausting. Like the people who need the care are oftentimes the people who are always doing the caring. So I'm more sort of thinking from the perspective of like, well, no one else is going to do it, right? So even if I dwell on why no one else is doing it, that's just taking away from actually doing the thing. And that no one else is going to do it because no one else has done it. It's always been the most marginalized and unsupported people who have changed the world. And they changed the world because either no one else is doing it or the world is saying that we can't do that. We can't make that thing easier for you to access. We can't, we can't support you. You need to be quote unquote normal. And so, it is exhausting. It's a lot. And I think that's why I've really been spending a lot of space over the last 2 years, really thinking about how I think about productivity and rest, following content creators like the NAP Ministry and the Rest as Revolution movement, right? Because, now I look at rest as the thing. So over time, I've experienced less of the emotions of like being angry or being frustrated when I'm like in those moments or in these moments of like fatigue that's insurmountable and really, and the fatigue specifically is so like, it doesn't make any sense because there's something wrong, obviously, with the way my body is processing signals and stimuli. but just accepting that this is what the thing is.
Mm.
The thing is that I have to rest. Rest is a thing. So when we talk about like production, right? Rest is the thing. So instead of saying I did nothing today, I say I rested today. I had to rest all day. And there's no guilt. There's no like equating good or bad features to that. That's what is needed. And sometimes the rest is 15 minutes, an hour. Sometimes it's a whole day. Sometimes it's weeks. And moving beyond that, I am confident that I built a strong enough community and also strategies for myself to reach out to that community to know that my needs will be cared for when I'm not, when that rest is, for how our world is set up, right? Our world is set up for that you don't rest.
Yeah.
Rest is for the weak.
Yep.
Rest is grind culture. You get less sleep. You wake up earlier. You spend more time. You turn those hobbies into revenue streams, right?
Revenue streams. Yeah, I mean, what we do is our value. That's the name of the game. Yeah.
So I really have worked really hard to change that narrative, so I don't feel as upset when I have a weekend and I'm in bed all weekend.
Yeah.
Very little activity. And that's not to say that I still don't, it's not, you're not looking for perfection. Like I don't want to make it seem like that is like, I do that perfectly, but I definitely have, I think my community oftentimes is more concerned than I am, because I'm like, well, I've gotten very used to this. So for me, it's not uncommon for me to like, so I have a car. I didn't always have a car, but I have a car now. And there's sometimes the car is parked for 5 days. I don't even use it. I don't. A week ago, I was literally I was in the homebound for 7 days. I didn't leave the house quite literally for 7 straight days. And that is normal. That's my normal. That's common for me. And so, years ago, that the push and pull of that, the tension between that was more palatable or palpable, if it's the word I'm looking for. Like it was more like a thing, because at that time, it was very much this model of you're going to beat this thing. You're going to get stronger. You're going to rise above it. You're going to cure it. You're going to do all the things that our system said that you should do to overcome, to fight the battle, to rise above it. And when I was doing all those things and it wasn't changing the big picture, I still had the thing. That was when I was going up and down in like, depressive moments and despondency and sadness, right? And I worked with a cognitive behavior therapist that helped me to sort of think about like how do you think about this differently? What would happen? What if you could envision a way of being that you just accept that this thing is part of your experience and that it's not going to go away? Like what would happen if that? And I had it was like a revolutionary thought, because everything that I had been taught and was reading and was, when you think about illness, was that you individual, right? So very individualistic. What is it, a meritocracy, right? If you have this thing that's like negative and you don't solve it, then there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, you're bad.
You didn't do enough, right?
Yeah.
You didn't work hard enough.
Yeah.
And so I everything that I was doing came from that lens at the time. And so I just, it's been years of what if you always have some level of pain? What if you accept that you may not be able to work in this, the same career that you were working in? What if it's okay that you sleep all weekend, every weekend? What if it's okay that you sometimes have to cancel appointments or cancel engagements or cancel commitments?
Mm-hmm.
And when I had that shift, when I thought about it that way, that is really what has helped me to not only survive with this condition, but thrive, really, right? And actually, probably, or not probably, for sure, I know definitively that I've been able to experience and make connections with people like yourself that I would never have been connected with
Mm.
and never have done, things that I would never have done. I'm working on publishing my third book, and it's a big production, and it's very overwhelming, and feels sometimes like, how am I able to do all of this with all of what I live with? But, it's because I lean into community and lean into this idea of interconnectedness and that rest, right? Rest is the thing. And when you change your mindset around how you think about disability or the challenge or whatever it is that you're dealing with in life, it really does help you to navigate it, because you just, the lens that you look at it is very different. Like, and it's this constant, it's a shift because everything in our world is the complete opposite of that.
Yeah, it's like you're no longer this oppositional force against the thing. You're no longer like, I have to conquer this, and unless I
Yeah.
don't, I'm a failure. You're allowing for it to be, and it's still a dynamic thing. It's not like static, right? Like it's still like you're still figuring out like what all this stuff means for you. You're going to doctors, you're still attending to your body and listening to your body as it changes, and you're allowing for it to be what it is, which I think it's a hard thing to do. That's a really hard thing to do. I've had to learn a bit of that myself, and it's hard. And you need people. You need people to support you. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so hard. It's so hard, and it's that constant self-awareness. Honestly, it really is radical self-awareness, and I am always thinking about how I'm thinking. Like, I'm literally thinking about how I'm thinking, how I'm processing, how I am processing and taking in whatever the stimuli is, whatever the situation is. And, I'm really happy to be connected with people in spaces and have a platform to be able to share these experiences. But, it's hard work. It's a lot of work. And I think, just going on that thread again, like, sometimes you're like, why do I have to do it? Why do I have to do it? But then I say, well, but who's going to do it? Who else is going to do it?
Yeah. I mean, I often, I posted something like a couple of weeks ago, and it was essentially like my face, and then it was me saying nobody cares, and then me also saying I care. Because the reality is, like, I feel, and I'm sure you feel, that like nobody cares. Nobody cares about mental health. Nobody cares about Black people. Nobody cares about chronic pain. Nobody cares about anyone else but themselves. And I care. So the nobody cares piece, like, that's a blanket statement. That's a big, heavy feeling. I don't think it's necessarily true, right? And I think sometimes, like, figuring out that truth, just, it takes time. It takes curiosity. It takes finding, you and I, Calvin, finding each other. It takes finding people in our spaces who do care, because there's a lot of people who do, and maybe they don't know how to. Maybe they don't know, they don't have the tools, right? They have the heart for it, and they don't have the tools, right? Sometimes they need to be in relation to another person to reflect that stuff. And it's why I always go back to one heart at a time. Like, it's overwhelming. It's too overwhelming otherwise. I don't know.
Yeah. And I think, for me, I'm a very independent person. and I've always been that way. And I am a very high. I don't like to use the terminology. I'm trying to not use the terminology of high functioning because I think it's incredibly ableist. But I'm someone who's very much ambitious and a visionary thinker and very creative, and have lots of ingenuity and genius. You say for myself, and so because of that, my go-to, right, is, I think, when you're in a creative and visionary people, because we are the people who transform the world and change change how things have been done, right? Because you do that all the time, and you're always the person who's like the natural leader, the natural organizer, the natural all of those things. Speaking for me, I sometimes go immediately to, so there's all these things that you have to manage, or that I have to manage, and then I say, well, I also have this disability. And I used to, right after my 8 months of I was like rehabilitating myself and getting back to a positive place, I had the trauma from that. And the trauma stemmed from years of trying to go against what we just talked about and be the opposite way. And then I crashed and my body just gave out.
Yeah.
And I was scared after that, coming out of that, because I thought, well, if I push too far, if I do too much, then I may crash again. But what I had to learn is that because that happened, back in 2012 for 8 months, I know that I will never again, because my mind is different. The person that I am is different from that person before that. So I know deep down that I will never allow myself to push myself to that level. And because I have that subconsciously, I know that whatever I want to do, I can do it. It will take time and it'll take community and all the things, but I can definitely do it. But I still sometimes forget that and immediately go back into the individual, like, oh my God, how am I going to do all of this? And then that's when those feelings of overwhelming, anxiety, stress, high cortisol come up until I am thinking about my thinking. And then I immediately say, okay, why do I feel these things? Why do I feel anxious? And I say, well, I have a lot going on, but I always have a lot going on. That's just how I am. And I say, why does this feel different from the normal a lot going on? There's always a lot going on. And I say, well, it's because I'm thinking that I'm going back to how am I going to do it instead of how am I going to lean into my community to support this? How am I going to? So then as soon as I think about that thinking and think about why am I feeling the way that I'm feeling, all of the anxiety about whatever the thing goes away, because I know that I have a community of people that I know that will help me. And even if I don't know them yet, I know that I have the tools to find them.
Yes.
And all I have to do is tap into the world to help, because there's somebody that can help. You may not know them yet. And then I say, oh, then it's like, okay, then I don't have to lose sleep, because, I'm the kind of person that I'll be up all night thinking about all the things. How am I going to do it? And I can't sleep. And then I think about it and I say, oh, well, maybe I just need to write the things down. So I'll just turn over, pull out my whatever piece of paper, phone, write down the things. And then I'll say, okay, I needed to process this out. Then I go to sleep or whatever. I'm feeling anxiety. I'm feeling overwhelmed. Why do I feel overwhelmed? Well, because I'm individualizing this situation. And as soon as I shift the lens again, then it's like, oh, well, I can just ask my neighbor to help. Or, well, why do I have anxiety about driving today? I'll just have someone pick me up. Or I'll call an Uber, or whatever the thing is, right? And so, again, I think that society, right, it's so easy. You have to constantly have these types of conversations and fill your cup and tap into your network, because the society is telling you that you have to do it. Like, you're wrong, you're broken, if you have problems, you need to fix it. And it's like, that is not the case. The true revolution is that you tap into your community to help you. And we know that our society and culture, specifically white supremacy culture, that impacts everyone, would have us to believe that there is no community, right?
Yep.
That there is no mutual aid, that there is no one else who can help you, that there is no one else who's going through this. And that is the myth that we are all indoctrinated into, and like the invisible sea of that all around us.
Mm-hmm.
So when we talk about successful people, we talk about the billionaires of the world, right? It's always about them. They did it. And no one does anything without a community of people that supported them, whether they know or not.
Yep.
Right. So even the successes that we have and the things that we do is all because someone laid the groundwork for you even before you existed.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So that is what I'm always trying to tap back into. And you really have to make it a daily practice or regular practice, because if not, it's just so easy to fall back into those old habitual mindsets.
Yeah.
And practice actions,
It is. And that's so beautifully said, and such a important reminder that, because like sometimes it's obvious, right? Sometimes it's the English teacher you had in high school who like saw your weird writing for what it was and had some value, and because it was a little different from other papers or whatever. And then sometimes it is the people you don't see that are sort of reshaping the system for you, right? And honoring that and being curious about that is a crucial part of that, leaning on the community or honoring the community. Like you mentioned, white supremacy, obviously a system that exists in this world. And we talk about leaning on community, like how has that played a role? Like using my example, right? White, cis man, able-bodied, one can presume that it's easier for me to ask for help, for instance, right? Like, because I don't have to deal with racism, right? I don't have to deal with that on the surface, right?
Mm-hmm.
And for you, as a Black man who does value community, does lean on community, like how has that piece been the sort of like the armoring up against like, hey, I do have to protect myself a little bit more in this area because the world isn't set up for me. The world isn't always safe toward people like me.
Well, I want to say that I feel like we need to be more intentional about naming that white. I mean, we talk about white supremacy culture. We're not talking about like white people are bad. This idea of that. We're talking about these ideologies that I've already referenced. Mm-hmm. This individualistic, this meritocracy. And I think to your point, the harm of white supremacy is that it also harms white people, specifically white men. We look at the crisis of mental illness and the suicide rate, and we also have this rhetoric right now of this white replacement theory, which is a historical theory. I'm a scholar of history, of African American history, and these ideals that people are talking about now, this attack on wokeness, this attack on critical race theory, if you will, right?
Yep.
A couple months ago, there was a shooting in Buffalo, in the grocery store in Buffalo, and it was. Right. I believe it was a white man who was targeting Black people, and 9 Black people were killed. That white supremacy culture is harmful to everyone. We know the ways, and it's very explicit the ways in which it's harmed and continues to harm Black Americans, Black people globally, Indigenous people, disabled people, queer people, etc. But I think that we don't talk about enough that when you talk about you having the identities of being a cisgender, white, able-bodied man, on paper, yes, you might say it's easier for someone like you to ask for help. But I mean, if we just look at the political rhetoric that we see, we look at the insurrection that happened on January 6th, 2021. We look at that rhetoric. Mm-hmm. The idea this idea of the incel, right? That ideology,
Yep.
that is a product of this idea of what we're talking about. This highly individualized, the idea of white replacement theory, that the others are going to replace us, and if they replace us, then they might do to us what historically we have done to them,
Sure.
because you can't even envision a world in which people who have been historically marginalized are not looking for revenge. They're looking for equity and parity. They're looking to be made whole again.
Absolutely.
And that,
Yeah.
but the system would have you believe that I have to get them before they get me, right? And that is harmful to someone like you and other white men who are able-bodied,
Sure.
who fear that if everybody gets equal resources, that there will be something missing for you.
Yes.
And that is the mythology, and that is the harm of this culture. That's an exploitative, individualistic, paternalist culture that doesn't, and patriarchal culture, right? That upholds and says that some people have more value than others, and it's harmful to every person. And the fact that so many men don't have the capacity or don't have the skill set to have emotional conversations, to show emotion, are told, are raised to not cry, are raised to equate emotions with femininity or masculinity or gendered, all of these things. These are all byproducts of whiteness. Is harmful to everyone. And until we really name that, it's not just a Black issue or an indigenous issue, right? This is harmful to everyone, because then we have people who don't have any other skill set but to go drive to Buffalo from another city, or someone like a Kyle Rittenhouse with a gun and massacre people. We had Dylan Roof, who went into the church. And that makes me very sad.
Yeah.
That makes me very sad that, and I don't even know that they see the harm. Like that's the harm of this culture. And the culture then says, well, those are anomalies. That was just a really bad person.
Yep.
And, extrapolates it from the system, the culture, the society that breeds these ideologies. Just recently, I read that there was a 24-year-old white, I'm assuming identified as cisgender, who was planning to attack women on the college campus, which we know has happened multiple times. So, why are people who on paper have so much untapped privilege and ability, right? Why do they feel that you have to quite literally commit genocide against other groups of people? And we don't talk about enough that this is because of our systems, right?
Yeah.
Because of the lack of mental health access, the stigmatization of mental health, all of these things are making people feel like they don't have any community, that there's no one who can support them, there's no one who cares, right? And those are conversations and thoughts that I am constantly thinking about. And so I think that it's really important that we name that.
I agree.
For
and
sure.
I appreciate that. I believe and agree, and have had that conversation a number of times. I'm with you. I feel you. When you feel like, I think it's defensiveness, right? It's fear, it's worry, it's anxiety that what you have will be taken away in whatever may be. I don't ever feel that, but I can imagine people can feel that way. And when you don't have, like you said, the support, the access to mental health care, people around you being mirrors for you and reflecting back and being in community with others. You do. I mean, I know for myself, yeah, a whole lot of damage to myself. I mean, grateful I didn't do it to others. Whole lot of damage to myself when I was in that individualistic place, you know, in my teens and 20s. And I've been made brighter and more beautiful and more caring and more curious because of others. Simply put, that's the healing power, I think, of our collective. So, you know, you are a scholar, Calvin. You are someone who knows this stuff in and out, and you started 540 West Main. What was it, like 6-7 years ago at this point?
Yeah, in 2015 and then 2016, sort of like publicly. Yeah, and we are an anti-racism education platform, and we create and produce and program around helping people to understand how these things are interconnected and how the history is connected to the present and living. And, you know, we consult with other companies who are trying to do better in these areas of equity and accessibility and anti-racism. And really the work that I'm doing with 540 was really born out of this experience of living with disability and needing to create a pipeline and infrastructure of work for myself. And it initially started with, you know, blogging and content creation and writing for the internet, on the internet. And then I started the Gluten-Free Chef brand as a mechanism right in the December of 2012, actually. So we'll be celebrating 10 years officially in December, because I knew I just said that the internet is here to stay. Maybe someday I'll be able to cobble together a living through this medium. And that was my first blog, the Gluten-Free Chef blog. That's led to, you know, the work that I do now as an educator and a scholar of African American studies and history, and, you know, 540 West Main now. So, you know, there's a lot, and I'm really happy to be able to do the work that I do and connect with people from all over the world, and that's growing. And I'm currently writing a cookbook as to, you know, commemorate the 10 years of the Gluten-Free Chef, which seems exciting. Like a bigger project than even 540 West Main has been over 6 years. So I'm in the thick of that creativity now. So yeah, like I said, I always feel like I have a lot going on, but that's pretty consistent and standard for me because I'm able to do this and write this book now, right? So this book has been 10 years in the making. I wrote on the Vision Journal, you know, back in 2013, like I'm, you know, write a cookbook one day, right, around this brand. And what I love most about living through and documenting this process and where I am now is that I wouldn't be able to write this. All these experiences, the collective of experiences over the last decade, and the connections and all the work and all of these conversations and metacognition and all the things are why I'm able to do this now. And yeah. I wouldn't have been able to write this book then.
Right.
So, you know, do I wish that this wasn't my experience? I don't think I do, because then none of this would be here. We wouldn't be having this conversation now. So
I think that's a very empathetic framework. I love it. Yeah, I love it. I know you have a few minutes, so let's talk about our empathy heroes.
Okay.
Yeah, this is the part of the show where my guest and I mention someone in our lives who is an empathy hero. I will go first. So my empathy hero this week is a reporter named Sally Yates, who investigated over the course of a few years the abuses from coaching staff and administration in the NWSL, the National Women's Soccer League. And the investigation came out a couple weeks back. It's very amazing piece of reporting and investigation by Sally Yates, and it uncovers some harsh truth and horrifying stuff that has been happening in the NWSL for years. And as a soccer fan and soccer player myself, and just women's soccer fan, I'm grateful that the report is out, and I'm grateful that people are being fired and let go because of the report, because I know I grew up playing soccer, and it wasn't always, I always felt a little bit outcast because it felt too patriarchal. It felt too like a coach needs to yell at you, and like that's what it is, and like that always felt weird, and that was really hard for me. And so I'm grateful that Sally Yates has investigated this and put that out into the world. If you want to read the report, I'll link it in the show notes at feedthehuman.co. Calvin, how about your empathy hero?
Yeah, so my empathy hero is, as I mentioned earlier, the NAP ministry. So Trisha Hershey, who I've never met, but have been following her for probably the last 2 years. Her book was released earlier, I think either this month or last month. So it's called Rest. Rest is Resistance, a Manifesto. And her theory and her work has really, like I said, revolutionized how I think about rest, and that everyone, all of us, myself included, rest is a human right. And it's through rest that we're able to have empathy. And so I think that everybody, if you're on Twitter or Instagram, follow the NAP ministry. Yes. She is a Black woman. And so her book, I just got it in the mail today, and I'm so excited to sort of dig into it soon and just continue to think about, like, how do we create a world and envision a world in which everyone can rest,
Hell yes. Definitely follow the NAP ministry. Big fan. I still need to pick up that book. I intend to. Yes, rest more, because rest is resistance. Rest is a bit of fuck you to capitalism and the forces that Calvin was mentioning earlier, that tells us to keep doing and crushing and killing. That's not who we are as humans. So grateful for Trisha for writing that book. Tracy?
Tracy, is it Tracy?
Did I?
Trisha, yes.
Oh, I said it right. Trisha. Hershey. Rest is Resistance is a book. I'll make sure to include that link in the show notes. Calvin, where can the listeners connect with you?
Yeah, so people can connect with me in a couple different ways. So I'm on social as the Gluten Free Chef blog. And you can also follow 540 West Main. So it's 540 WMAIN, 540 West Main. And yeah, stay tuned for just more goodness, more content, more really amazing things I'm really excited to share. And you can email me at axtheglutenfreechef@gmail.com.
Amazing. Stay tuned for more goodness. Calvin Eaton. I love it. I'm excited about your cookbook. I can't wait to pick it up.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, it was a delight to have you. I want to talk with you longer, but you have to go. I understand. Well, listeners, as I always say, I'm here, you're here. We're here together on this wayward, overwhelming, awe-inspiring pale blue dot. We have each other. It's Yumi Empathy.
La, la, la.